Can you guys wave the camera, please? Good morning, everyone. Imagine living in a nation so divided that arguments turn into physical violence, debates in Congress turn into threats, and communities are so divided that they're willing to fight and die for their side. This was America in the late 1800s during the Civil War. The Civil War was one of America's most brutal wars, claiming over 600,000 lives. This war did not happen overnight. This war was caused because of rising conflicts, political failure, and deep-rooted differences. Today, I'll walk you through the main causes of the war, some key events that pushed the country toward it, and finally, the attack on Fort Sumter, which was the official start of the Civil War. The nation divided. The American Civil War has three main factors: slavery, state rights, and sectionalism. Sectionalism is when a person is more loyal to their region than their nation. These issues divided America and made it harder for the country to compromise. Understanding how these divisions were formed will help us understand why certain debates still affect us today. Slavery and sectionalism. Let's start with slavery and sectionalism. The Southern economy depended heavily on enslaved labor to support their agricultural needs. Meanwhile, the North was becoming more industrial and more anti-slavery. As new states joined the Union, fierce arguments erupted on whether or not slavery should be allowed in the new territories. State rights versus federal authority. Another cause was the fight between state rights and federal authority. The South believed that individual states should decide on important decisions that affect them. They felt that the federal government was getting too strong and was affecting their way of life. In his book, Battle Cry of Freedom, historian James McPherson explains that the South feared the North would use the federal government to destroy their way of life. To them, it wasn't just politics, it was survival. Economic disparities. The third major cause was economic disparities. The South was rural and focused on exporting crops like cotton. They wanted low tariffs to make trade easier. The North, on the other hand, supported high tariffs to protect its growing industries. These economic differences led to constant fights in Congress. Each side felt like the other was trying to use the federal government to better their own lives. The Dred Scott decision. The Dred Scott was a decision made in 1857 that the Supreme Court ruled that African Americans were no longer citizens and Congress had no power to ban slavery in the new territories. This ruling outraged the North and energized the South. It was a major blow to the anti-slavery movement and pushed the country further towards conflict. Election of Abraham Lincoln. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln was elected. Abraham Lincoln at first did not promise to end slavery right away, but he did strongly oppose it. That was enough to convince many southern states to secede. They felt that their way of life was in danger. Before Abraham Lincoln was even elected, 7 southern states seceded from the Union. Fort Sumter. Fort Sumter was located in Charleston Harbor in South Carolina, a state that had already seceded from the Union. Even though the South had left the Union, Union troops still occupied the fort, and it became a symbol of federal power. According to the American Battlefield Trust, Fort Sumter was a daily reminder to the South that the Union still had power in their territory. Confederate attack. On April 12, 1861, the Confederates demanded the Union surrender the fort. The Union denied. The Confederacy opened fire. The bombardment lasted 30 hours. Union forces eventually surrendered, but the damage was already done. As Ferguson Bardwich wrote, this attack was an official start of the Civil War. President Abraham Lincoln called for 75,000 volunteer soldiers, while 7 other southern states seceded. Conclusion. The Civil War began because of many reasons. Because of deep differences between the North and the South, like slavery, state rights, and economic conflict. Major events like the Dred Scott decision and Abraham Lincoln's election. These events made it clear compromise was no longer an option. And finally, the attack on Fort Sumter, which turned the political arguments into a war. Understanding these events helps us better understand America today, how division, if ignored, can destroy us, and why it is important to work towards unity and justice. Thank you.